This is the Cannacurio podcast powered by Cannabis Media. I'm your host, Ed Keating, and today we're joined by Chris Violas, CEO and founder of Blaze. Chris, welcome.
Thank you, Ed. Excited to be here. It's been a minute.
Yeah. Great we got to run into each other in Miami a couple of weeks ago, and glad to continue the conversation today. So first thing we always want to ask on the pod is, how long have you been in the cannabis industry, and how did you get here? Like, where were you before?
Yeah, no, great question. And honestly, I tend to surprise people with this. I've actually been in the cannabis industry since about 2010. So it's been quite some time for me. I started back in the day. I was actually a junior in college when I started my first dispensary with my father. This was back in California, Prop 215 days, some medical days.
Wow.
My father had been in the industry for quite some time. He's been a cannabis attorney since he's been doing this since about 2006, and really started to shape, what California cannabis started to look like back in the day. So I got an early glimpse of kind of what some of the dispensaries and growers in Long Beach and LA and Orange County were doing for the medical program, Prop 215. And I got excited and said, hey, I want to get into business. I'm an entrepreneur. Like, this looks interesting to me. So we started our first dispensary called Cannabis in the Central Coast of California. And I think it was 2010, and ultimately sold that in 2014. So I've been in the problem. I've lived it personally, but ever since then, it's been quite the journey.
Well, that's pretty interesting. When I got out of school, I worked for a gigantic publishing and compliance software company. And I remember our CEO at one point, as they were transforming this, $500 million organization, talked about some of the people who said on the teams of the company, they lacked a practitioner's perspective, i.e. they were lawyers and accountants who chose to be writers and whatnot, instead of being an accountant or lawyer. So, here you've actually been on the inside and probably got to see the problems firsthand. Did that help you say, I'm going to create a company that's going to make it better to operate these businesses that I just came out of? Or was that sort of the inspiration?
Absolutely. I mean, look, at the end of the day, right, you kind of have that intrinsic just gut feeling to go help, right? And you kind of know instinctually where to go because you've been in that situation before. But look, it's really shaped our company, frankly. It shaped how we hire, what we look for. It shaped how we go to market. We can talk about that, what our product line looks like. But, to your point, we use our software. I showed you our point of sale station right before we jumped on the pod, but I run 20 transactions a day at my office to use our software. I do transfers on our software. If we're not using our own, software, like, how are we going to get better at this? And so being that domain expert, going to solve those problems. Yes, we're not perfect in every angle we take, but at least we have an opinion that's coming from experience. And then we continue to collaborate with our operators, right, to kind of get that full circle feedback loop and ultimately, hopefully, produce the best product for these operators. So it's a big part of who we are. It's a big part of our future, and something that I take a lot of pride in.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I have to live the same thing when I do a lot of my reports or analysis. I use our product to get the data because that's what our customers do too. If they're trying to figure out, well, where was their growth in the industry, I can go tap into these reports, and it actually helped us build them and architect them originally because Ed kept asking for all this info, and the data science team's like, wait, let's just build this out once, so then you can have it, and you won't need to, come to us for us. You can self-serve. So
exactly, yeah. So that's so it's been quite a bit of a journey for me. Right after I sold the dispensary, I went into big tech and started working on with big companies like Samsung. Spent about 4 years at Amazon Web Services, and during that time at AWS is really when I started to build what is Blaze today. So got a little bit of cannabis tech that's kind of driving us forward here.
Well, so what's interesting is you didn't just stop at, hey, I'm going to build something and just perfect it. Interestingly, and like we'll talk about later, you actually have acquired some companies and brought them into the fold. And, who have you brought in, and what has that been like? Because, having been through that in other industries, it can be very tough trying to meld two cultures, two companies, or in this case, I think 3. Tell us what that was like and how that has worked out.
Yeah, look, I think first, we have to understand kind of the space we're playing in this case, the cannabis industry, right? We have capital challenges for the most part, limited capital partners that can come in and finance some of the things that we want to do. So from a traditional technology startup kind of trajectory, we have to think about things differently. We have to be really stringent, very disciplined in the problems that we tackle. And so naturally, as we started to look up and we started to look at all the opportunity in cannabis, I was very open to finding some partners that could join forces and kind of build what I believe to be the chassis for the industry, Blaze being that inventory POS rail, and then kind of building things on top of there, whether it be e-commerce or so on and so forth. So, I went out with this thesis essentially that, hey, if we can find companies that find that match our particular DNA, like let's go ahead and pursue these things. That DNA is, scrappy founder-led teams, haven't raised a lot of money, but are very familiar with the domain, either have operated in the space or, have some sort of traction. And so when we started once we put that thesis out there to the board, they backed it. Then we started to go look and see, okay, well, what are we missing here? What's going on? The US was very, this was back in 2022. It's very messy, right? We have new markets coming up, some slower than others, and we can talk about rollouts and all the challenges that the US has. We looked up and literally looked up to the north. And the first company that we acquired was Grainline, which is a Canadian point of sale based out of Vancouver. And very fortunate to meet that team. Just fantastic operators, frankly. Albert, who's the founder, just did an incredible job building this company, along with Peter, Sam, some of the early founders, some of the early hires of that company. And so we went into the Canadian cannabis market. And as you know, it's a mature market. It is a difficult market. That being said, there's not that many competitors out there. We've got Kova, Tech POS, Dutch made a run at it, but didn't quite get the movement they were looking for. And so right away, we were able to get market share. But most importantly, we got a lot of interesting lessons that we learned from the Canadians. They had a lot of customers that 50, 40, 30 doors. It's very often we have the MSOs in the US, but we don't get that kind of scale necessarily right out of the gate in the US. We're able to really understand enterprise at a high level. And so that acquisition happened in June of 22. We can talk about the post-merger integration, but that was a great purchase for us. Really enjoyed that team and that market. I've learned quite a bit. And then subsequently in January of last year, it's been about a year now, we decided, hey, we've got a point of sale that is really sophisticated in the US called Blaze. We've got a point of sale that is very performant, meets different requirements in Canada. Like, what are we missing to help really drive this forward? And e-commerce was that answer for us, and really trying to bridge that solution end to end to really enable commerce. And so we had partnered with a company called Timber for about 4 years in the US. They've been fantastic, really fit kind of our, again, that perfect DNA, but also the vision for where that product was going. And so we decided, hey, at this point, we've got all these doors. We need to get e-com on top of it, not because we want to win every single deal, but because we think we've got a better product out there. And so we acquired them and rolled that out pretty damn quick last year. And I'm really, really grateful for Scott and Tiago and Kyle, who are the founders of that company. They've been fantastic to work with. So, but there's challenges. This has not been easy, right? Two acquisitions in less than 12 months is not simple. One from a legal standpoint, financial standpoint, and then obviously you mentioned culture, which is a whole nother piece. So I'm happy to dive in wherever you want to go. But
yeah. Well, and also as you touched on, the boundary of being in two different markets. I mean, I guess the other follow-on question is, how do these pieces fit together? And the other bigger meta question is, what does one need to have to compete in the space now? Like, what's POS 2.0? Like, for a while it was like, oh, we got to get into payments, and then that got kind of crazy and nutty. So like, I'm just trying to figure out, like, what is that really looking like now, or what does it look like for you, Chris?
Yeah, look, I think we are obsessed with the retailer. We want to empower them, and not because we have aspirations to be a marketplace and go deal with the consumers. That's not where we want to be at all. Where we want to be is, hey, how can we give you the best tools as an operator to be successful and be profitable, and frankly, run your business with as little resources as possible, right? Because we all know how taxing this industry is. And so for us, it was e-commerce, right? Payments is a big focus for us, obviously, just given where we sit in the point of sale. But I think, we're starting to pick our head up, and specific to cannabis, there's a lot of things that still need to be solved here, okay? We're focused a lot right now on just normalizing data. When data is messy, And I'm speaking to the choir here, as you know. If data is messy, it's almost impossible, right, to find insights and really drive that business forward and optimize it. Blaze itself is a very enterprise-ish tool, and so we've got all these fine-tuned knobs we can turn, but again, we don't have the right data set. It's really difficult to understand what to turn when. And so right now, big focus on a catalog. We've got great partners. We've been working on that, so you should hear more things coming out there. But a lot of enterprise feature sets is where we're focused on right now. So things like single sign-on, just basic things that really can enhance the experience, especially for those that have 40, 50 doors. You talk about deprovisioning someone across 10, 15 systems. I mean, this just gets out of hand pretty quick. So there's a lot of things to do to continue to mature where we're going. But I think right now the catalog's really interesting for us. You'll see some stuff on ads. We're doing some really fun things at Hall of Flowers in 2 weeks, which has never been done before. We can talk about that. But just basically taking the mobile shopping experience or the in-store shopping experience, taking a different approach at it. So we got a lot of stuff we're building, but I'd say right now the big theme is really normalization where we can.
Excellent. So when we were at that conference a few weeks ago, CannaDataCon, a lot of talk was on data, a lot of talk was on retail, and at the end of the last day, I spoke to an entrepreneur from Colorado who actually runs a bunch of stores. He was on a lot of panels, as you were, well-spoken. And the one thing he said with me that really stuck with me is, Ed, retail is retail is retail. And his point, because he'd worked in other industries, he came from the liquor industry, among others. But his point is that cannabis retail is really just retail like other industries. Obviously, there's a couple things that make it tricky or challenging, but we're solving problems, or the industry is trying to solve problems that have already been solved in other industries. Do you agree with that? Like, are there a lot of things that we can just borrow where we're like, oh, we have too many SKUs? Well, my supermarket has a lot of SKUs, or the state of Connecticut has 89,000 liquor SKUs. That's a lot, and we gripe about stores having too much, but is retail the same across different verticals, and cannabis is just a flavor of that?
Good question. I would say that my answer has evolved to that question. At first, I would say absolutely not. But what made up that answer? I'd say the compliance angle. It's very different, right? Now, is it that much different? No. A lot of people have self-reporting, whether it be COAs, right, certificate of analysis, or some respect to self-reporting. Like, that is something that's been around for quite some time. So I would say moving forward now, where I see things at, retail is retail. Of course, we have different challenges and nuances, really particular around marketing and how we talk to our customer. But generally, outside of that, when we talk about inventory, when we talk about auditing, reconciling months, when we talk about just purchase orders and demand planning, like, these are things that are scientifically based. Like, yes, retail is retail in that respect. So there's some nuances there. I would say the biggest nuance probably to me is the compliance. And then again, when we start looking at delivery, just every other industry in retail has third-party or last mile type of delivery, and we just don't have that. So that is an interesting nuance. Is it a complete deal breaker and something to be spent a ton of time on? No, not in my opinion.
Yeah, interesting. So in terms of, you've helped us understand, what Blaze does and the different parts of sort of the value chain that you're in. One thing I'm trying to get an understanding of is, does your typical customer take advantage of all that Blaze has to offer, or is it more of a pick and choose kind of thing where some of those with a larger footprint take the whole enterprise piece, whereas maybe the mom and pop shops are a little bit more, hey, I just need a POS for now, Chris, and then we'll move from there?
Yeah, it really depends on the life cycle of that business, right? But we've obviously made a huge effort since we acquired Timber to start moving e-commerce and at least that offering to our operators. And we've done a hell of a job, I would say, in the US, and Canada's really getting moving now. Had to make some changes just specific to that market, but we got those done. So I think in general, we obviously preach an open system. We want the best tool for these operators. And so a tool for a mature company that's got 10 doors, 15 doors, that has a technology team, like, they want API access. They want to programmatically control things. So we allow them to do that. And then we've got some operators that really like really like reviews. And so they might go with a different e-commerce provider that can provide a review type of format onto their product. So like we integrate with a lot of operators or a lot of different partners. That being said, I would say in the US, almost half our operators tend to use the full stack with us, a good amount. And in Canada, we are just getting that moving, but we're seeing a healthy trajectory and trying to move that needle quite a bit. So again, we want to win on us being the best product. And so hopefully our e-commerce, which I believe, Timber and Blaze Ecom to be the best in class, like continues to resonate the way it does.
Excellent. And that's a good segue. For the last 5 years, we've published the point of sale report where we call as many stores as we can and try and get who to use. And we chart the changes, see who switched from who gained, who lost. We count, at least as of last year, over 100 North American vendors in sort of the POS space, or at least those are the answers that people gave us when we called, which is crazy. It's about 70, 75 just in the US alone. How does one stand out when it's competitive? And you guys are pretty close to the top in terms of our survey. The top 5, I think, have like 60 to 70% share, and then it gets a little nutty after that. But how do you guys stand out in an environment like that?
Yeah, it's hard, right? It's extremely hard, and I would say the top 5, I would imagine, are well capitalized to some extent. So you got to be able to traverse regions well, and that is not hard. When I talk regions, I'm talking states most of the time. Moving from California to, let's say, Washington or Oregon, very different types of requirements, right? And so it's very difficult to be able to traverse these states. We've had our fair share of challenges and also successes in that front. You can look at New York, New Jersey. We've had great traction, but we've definitely stumbled. So at least for us, what makes us stand out at the end of the day, we have a very good inventory system that really helps us stand out. And yes, we have to adapt to these compliance nuances, but generally speaking, you can tell when our sales team gets on, when our account care team gets on. Again, we talk about kind of why it's important to be a domain expert. Like you can feel that come through the call. And that's one of the biggest pieces of feedback we get is, hey, the system feels like it was built from someone that like knew what they were doing and what they wanted to do with this particular product and operation. So for us, we've done very well in California. That's where we started. It's one of the largest markets. So we've had different challenges. We've got some dispensaries that have incredible volume, 1,200, 1,500 orders a day. We're talking in volume, which is just fantastic at a single location. We have some that are the size of Costco. It's kind of crazy to watch transact, but we were fortunate to be kind of, I would say hammered on right off the bat. We had some really sophisticated operators. So we had to kind of build that we had to build the product with that in mind. And so for us, I think standing out, one, you got to do right by your customer. A lot of our sales are all inbound, for the most part coming in. So these are referrals that people are talking about. And again, it's one thing to get a product out there, but then to support it and have people stick with you for 3-4 years, I think that's really where people start to build that trust, and they can honestly, refer us to a partner or someone in another state and say, hey, you should really go with these guys. They are here for you nonstop. And I think that's what makes us stand out is like it's post-sale is really where the rubber meets the road.
It's true. It's true. Now, you touched on inventory, which was a big part of the conversation at CannaDataCon. And I learned a lot listening to you and others speak on panels. And one speaker did sort of a whole premise on inventory is just a lot of carried debt. Like, it's just, where all your money's getting tied up. So how does your solution help people? Because that seems to be, if you could tell me, if I'm running a store and you got way too much invested in X, you have 45 days worth of inventory for that. You don't want that. You want this. Like, are you able to provide those insights for your customers so that suddenly they're like, wow, we're way more profitable now that we have Blaze than before?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, look, inventory is the name of the game, and you are right. Like I always tell our operators or anyone that's getting into retail in general, inventory is cash. That's it. Like if you give something away to someone, like you just gave them $20 or whatever that value is that you paid, because it is real cash that's going in and out here. So yes to that viewpoint. To the question around how do we help? Absolutely. I mean, we see inventory aging. We have inventory aging reports. We've got Blaze Insights that will give you recommendations of what to clear, when to clear it, right? When things are expiring, right? A lot of people forget about expiration dates, and it's like, no, we have to adhere to those, right? And so Blaze Insights is our reporting tool, sits on top of our point of sale and gives you a lot of visibility into inventory flow, right? We can look at sell-through rates and all the great stuff that we have access to. That said, we also partner with a lot of other folks that were at CannaDataCon that can kind of go that deeper level and they spend all their time just looking at this stuff.
Yeah.
We are doing a lot of other stuff outside of just reporting and just inventory control. So I would say we can definitely help an operator get their inventory under control and really understand it. And then from there, if you want to take it to that next level, you can go talk to the Happy Cabbages, the Casas, right, of the world. So
no, that makes sense, because there's a lot of data to be analyzed and understood, and I think different operators have different skill sets at that, or have the team for that.
I think, for us, what I took away from CannaDataCon, what I'm hearing continuously throughout the industry is just like, help me do it and make it simple, right? Because in the past, we talked about kind of the trajectory and the life cycle of these point of sales, and I'd bucket us in there. It was very much just, hey, we've got the data. Here it is. Here's a big spreadsheet, right? And that's great, but analysis, or paralysis by analysis, it's just like, what do I do now, right? Especially at the velocity that some of these doors move. And so that's what we're really focused on is, okay, again, retail is retail. What are those core metrics that are going to pop out and really help you, especially at the inventory level, right? Really help you optimize. So you don't have, too much carry, and you're not holding on to products that are not moving and are not wanted by your customer. So that is actually where we sit, and we have a lot of fun with it actually, because it's so different by market. And so you can have one operator in California go to New York, go to New Jersey, go to Mass, go up to Toronto, Manitoba. I mean, everything's very different. So
yeah, well, and your point about what I'd say is actionable data reminds me of where we were 10 years ago. We were like, hey, we have all these licenses, isn't that great? Like all the data, and people like, well, yeah, it's pretty good, but do you know any of the people there? We'll get that. And what about waste? Got it. And now it's more like, we have things like, well, which ones have labor peace agreements and union contracts, and which ones have real estate investment? Like, just, as you talked before about smarter operators, people asking for, harder, more interesting things. And so, but you're right. Like at first it's just, well, we have a big pile of data. Well, that's good, but great would be this. So I appreciate that. So, we talked about the point of sale space being really crowded. There's also been sort of a lot of tumult in the Cannatech space over the last year with acquisitions. So, the couple that I remember, BioTrack and All Leaves, Akurna sort of getting merged out of existence, a board coup at Dutchy, Posibit buying Hyper. I mean, a lot of stuff moving around, and we always hear that another one's in the offing. Do you think this? Do you think the shakeout's going to continue?
I do. I do think you're going to continue to see that. Why? Again, limited capital, right? Yeah. And so how do you maximize resources, right, and reach? Well, you got to have the reach and you got to have the resources. So oftentimes in a number of these, right, these M&A activities, like one tends to be the top dog on tech, one's got distribution, and then you see these guys kind of come together. So I think it'll continue. I think what we're going to see is less of these bigger deals happening, frankly, and it's just more regional stuff. I would say like the Posibit Hyper, something around those sizes is what we're going to probably see. There's just a lot of really good technologists out there that built some good companies that, again, are so locked into that specific region where they just need access, right, to a bigger distribution. But I think at the same time, why it's, you kind of asked the question, I think, with a negative context. That's what I got, at least coming from you. And it's like, these just haven't gone very well. And I think it's hard to do M&A, and a lot of people don't understand how hard it is to, again, we started off with it, is like culturally to get that fit in is very, very difficult. We had, let's say, like, that's one of the things that I focus on most right off the bat was, hey, how can we really get these guys integrated? And I've got a CannaDataCon from the first CannaDataCon talk on this, but like, how do we get them integrated fast, right? From a culture standpoint, the first thing that I did was, hey, comms, and wherever your CRM, like, that goes first, and that happens literally within week 1, week 2. Because once that happens, it just has a center of gravity and starts to pull everyone together. But it's interesting. We've had to work with different cultures, whether it be in Canada, right? Great folks, different culture than the US, just how we type, how we talk, how we manage meetings. And that just takes time, and you got to be patient and flexible. So I think with a lot of these acquisitions, there's this sounds great, but that hard work of that integration just hasn't been there. And so maybe not hard, the hard work has, but it just hasn't really panned out right. So
Yeah.
I go back to, hey, these smaller deals are just easier to consume and easier to integrate versus these larger deals. They're just hard.
Yeah.
Can be hard, but hard.
Well, right. And it sounds like you got a very thoughtful approach to it as well, which is what's going to make it successful, because it is really hard to do well. And I think a lot of times in any industry, the opportunities are supply based, where something is suddenly for sale, and you have to sort of react as opposed to respond, like, well, what are we going to do about that? And if you're not ready or haven't been, let's say, as thoughtful as some, and it's just, let's call our financial people and see if we can do this, that can lead to some tough outcomes, I think.
Yeah, I agree. But look, I think we're going to see some more, M&A. I just think it's natural for, an industry that's so early on as cannabis. So we'll see where it goes. I think we're seeing a lot of operators start to, continue to merge and kind of create larger entities. But yeah, I'm interested. This year's going to be always is going to be fun because you got to be, like I said, capital's tough right now, so you got to put yourself in a position to win on your own, and we'll see what happens this year.
Well, indeed. No, I totally agree. Now, as you look out of states, you touched on a couple of them before.
Sure.
How do you decide which states to go into? Because I believe most POS systems don't just cover every state that happens to have a license. Like, you're probably not going to spend a lot of time in Iowa, where there's a handful, versus New York, where there's going to be well over 1,000.
I mean, look, it's just business at this point. So first off, population centers, right? We're the population centers that can support these doors, right? You look at Oklahoma, didn't quite work out that way because the population center wasn't quite there. But California, the Michigans, right? Even Massachusetts, to some extent, New Jersey, New York. That's really where we start to look at it, is like, where can we go in, a lot of doors and do it quickly. The other markets for us too is just the SMBs we do really well with them. And so wherever we can find states that don't necessarily have that limited license set up, we do very, very well. We are trying to change that because we would like to go in those states, but generally speaking, we look for those large population centers that are going to support those licenses.
That makes sense. And that, probably helps from a sales and a support team structure as well, to have it sort of concentrated, and even in the right time zone sometimes matters too.
Yeah, there's definitely, benefits of that, but I would say our goal is to cover every state. We've got about 19, I believe, or 19 or 20 or so, I think, in kind of the green check mark for compliance.
Yeah.
And we're continuing to work through, obviously New York just threw some fun stuff at us, trying to integrate BioTrack in 60 days. So, hey, we're on that. But generally speaking, like, our goal is to get across all markets. Like, to your point, Iowa and maybe Utah might be some of the last ones we get to, but there's good operators there. There's good volume there. It's just, hey, we got to pick and choose our battles. So we've started to think of, what are the commonalities to enter new states, right? Like, let's go attack those and try to create frameworks around those variables so that we can address them quicker. And our team's been able to do that. We've established a new program called the Trailblazer program, which when we get into a new state, that first one or two customers, we are partners with them. Like, we are there day in and day out for the first 3 months, and having executive syncs weekly and making sure things are going. Because again, we can read the regs, we can have our interpretation of them, we can get 95% there, but it's on the ground that kind of completes that full loop for us. So that program has been very successful, and again, we're just trying to be respectful and mindful of working with new operators in new states, because it is challenging.
Absolutely. So, now, I was curious, sort of trend wise, looking at other things that are happening in the industry as we sort of look a little bit more forward. And we spoke about this in Miami. What do you think's going on with, hemp and hemp derived cannabinoids? Because, as a guy who was an econ major in college a million years ago, I remember substitutes and complements. And I think a lot of people are just like, oh, I went to the dispensary today and bought something, and they don't know that it's not a quote unquote licensed cannabis store. Like, is that having an impact at all for your clients or even for Blaze?
Absolutely. Like, we've had, look, I would say when it comes to hemp, there's just so many topics to cover, but generally, is it eating cannabis consumers? Like, generally, yeah, it is. It's starting to pull from dispensaries and retail. At the end of the day, there's obviously different types of archetypes, right? Consumer archetypes, and there are certain ones that are more prone to to exit, call it the recreational cannabis market, and move over to kind of the hemp and CBD derivatives. But look, it's a huge market. It's growing, and it's something that's, it's frankly unregulated. And so you've got a lot of folks shipping products across state lines. And so folks are being like, why can't I just get it like this? This is normal. And to your point, they just don't have the education to understand this is totally not in the cannabis like legal supply chain necessarily. This is, under the Farm Bill. It's a little different. Oftentimes they're not reading the Farm Bill to a T when they're producing these products. So it's complicated. It's kind of confusing. I think for us, there's an opportunity there. Call it high risk retail, if you want to call it that, where Square and just other point of sales are not going to want to play. And so for us, it might be something we'll look at and support in the future, but generally it's definitely full of its own challenges for sure. You don't have state by state stuff, but you have a lot of, hey, is this even legal question? And if they're processing sales through our platform, like, hey, we have an onus to understand what's going on.
Yeah. And similarly, I mean, we see a related trend with vape and smoke shops because, in Connecticut where I am, they are often the ones getting in trouble with the regulator for selling cannabis vapes under the table or to kids and whatnot. So they'll make a big pronouncement about it. And then I know that all those businesses have legit other licenses with the state, like they're vape sellers and they're approved by the state, but they're just not approved for cannabis. So yeah, I think we're in for some interesting times ahead as that all figures its way out. So
yeah, I do think it's a good platform to look outside North America and look outside interactivity across the global market. For us, that's always been a question. When I look at businesses, and I look even at our own business, like what's our total TAM? Like how do we make this a $2, $3, $5 billion company? We need that global reach. Hence why I went to Canada. Hence why we're looking at other ways. But I think CBD is a great platform in hemp to really open up global trade. And I think once that happens, whether various markets take on the THC component of it or not, we'll see. Time will tell. But I think just opening that up, it's a good vehicle for that.
No, that's a great, thoughtful view of trying to, get out of our green bubble here in the U.S. and realize that there's a lot of other people on the planet and there's a lot of other initiatives. I mean, look at Germany in the last week or so.
Right.
It's moving along, or even the Netherlands, kind of, although that seems slow and pokey. Switzerland. So, you've been in it longer than most. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. In terms of the industry as a whole, sort of we wrap up.
Sure.
And I think back to something you said at breakfast a few weeks ago that, you've really tried hard to be very capital efficient and, spend your money carefully, which is good, especially in this environment. When do you think our industry is going to emerge from this kind of funk that we're in? Because it's been a capital crunch, almost since 2019. And then we got the boost in COVID when money came in and now has receded. So any thoughts or guesses on that, Chris, to play economist for me here today?
Yeah, look, oh man, I feel that when you say that, and our operators feel it, our partners feel it, and it's just, man, we're doing some great work, but then to have this, some of these constraints are really, it's tough, right? It takes a lot of willpower to push through. So yes, I've had a huge focus for our company in being capital efficient. And if you look at all the major ones, like we're very much at the bottom from a capital raise perspective, but yet you look at our door count, look at our market share, we're well above our punching weight. Will this change? Obviously Schedule 3 gives us a little bit of hope from just it being capital being more accessible, whether that floods into the market or slowly trickles in. I'm not quite sure. And when that happens, again, really, really up in the air. I'm sure we could have a whole hour conversation on when Schedule 3 might hit. But look, I think at the end of the day, you need that, and we need better financial system. I mean, we talked about some of the payment hurdles, right? We need a Visa, we need a MasterCard to come together to work with us and say, hey, look, just as similar to, people, buy firearms with credit cards. Like, why is it so different to buy cannabis? Like, why can't we work together and make this more efficient for everyone involved, right, and safer for everyone involved? So I think you get a credit card brand to start getting some movement to support this industry. The banks are willing to support it. I know that today, 100%. So if we can get some movement there, some movement on Schedule 3, I think we're going to see our retailers become with the Schedule 3, I'm predicting about 20-25% margin gain for these folks. Like
Yeah.
all of a sudden, those folks that are just making it are sitting really well, and they can start to grow, and they can start to reinvest everything that they've done to help grow their business, right? So I think that is going to be super meaningful for everybody. Again, when it hits, I do not know. So whether get ready for the storm, it's going to continue, I would say, for a while. But you know, those that are doing well right now, I mean, they are really going to shoot north when it happens. It's going to be exciting. So definitely tough. Hopeful for some movement. Again, those that have been here and are here still deserve a ton of respect just for making it and sustaining. And now at this point, I think we're all ready for some relief somewhere.
Yeah. Well said. I totally agree. So last question I want to ask you touched on this a little bit more earlier, which is, what are some of the things that we might be able to expect from Blaze in the future without giving away too many details? You mentioned, I think, advertising and whatnot. So we'd just love to hear what you can share so that we can think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we're really excited about some of the product work we've done with our acquisition. So you look at Timber. We are just launching our in-store mobile shopping experience. I don't know if you've been to IKEA or to Home Depot and you have the app, but it basically, most stores, retail, when you want to order in the store without going to a retail associate, you go to a kiosk. Who wants to put their personal information on a damn kiosk in the public? No one.
Right.
So we built what we call the in-store shopping app, which basically allows you to be your own kiosk, go around the store, scan QR codes, and add it to your cart, build the cart, check out, and have it ready in a minute once fulfilled.
Like my grocery store, actually. And we can do that here where my phone is my scanner.
Exactly. So we just launched something similar to that in with our e-com product. We're debuting this thing at a large scale with Hall of Flowers in about 2 weeks in Ventura. The whole Hall of Flowers experience. I don't know if you've been there before or experienced it, but each retail buyer will be scanning, QR code from the brand, building their cart, and then getting their samples through our app. So that's really exciting to see that technology used at that scale. So that is new for us. We've also, I really challenged our team about 18 months ago to be like, guys, if we were to rewrite our software, what would we do differently? What could we do to really make ourselves compete better, help our operators out more? And so ultimately we came down to rewriting our point of sale. And so we are really excited. That is, a month or so away from being deployed. And our biggest hurdle has been just a device agnostic platform. We've had operators have to buy iPads to run the point of sale, which is fine. But in a capital constrained market, if people don't have those, they're not going to go drop 20 G's to go switch out hardware to go move to a better system, right? There's that kind of that balance. And so for us, our point of sale will be hardware agnostic. We're platform agnostic. So web, Android, iOS, we're just extremely excited to get that out. And our, we reduced the clicks by 40%. So transaction speed will improve. The actual performance of the point of sale has improved. So generally, it's just kind of our 2.0. It's something that I told the team, like, I don't want to build a point of sale again. This has got to be it. So we really challenged the team to do it. And I think that'll be huge for us amongst, some of the work we're doing in the catalog that I mentioned. And that really, not necessarily from an ads perspective, just from a data normalization and helping our operators scale perspective that I'm really excited about. So they can go in, benefit from some of our partners' catalog and be able to enrich their data set very quickly and not have someone, in the closet or in the back, just like typing and editing descriptions and uploading pictures. Like we just don't, that's not a good use of our time anymore. So that'll be coming out. And then, I think the second half is going to be, we'll see what else we can produce, but there's just a lot's going on over here. And I think we'll continue to push the innovation front. That's something that I really enjoy. I just don't want to build something. I want to continue to iterate on it and improve it. So I would say Blaze, we're at, the best posture we've been in quite some time. All teams are moving at a great velocity and everyone's happy. So we're just kind of day by day chugging away and producing some good work.
All right. Well, what a great note to end on, Chris. Thanks so much for joining us today on the podcast. It was really great to learn, more about you and your long background in the industry, as well as all the cool things going on at Blaze.
Yeah, Ed, really appreciate you. Thank you. And the whole cannabis team, you guys do a great job. And thank you for all the insights on the industry, because it's needed. So appreciate you and appreciate having me on.
Excellent. All right. Thanks very much.
All right.